What's going on, NFL Turf Talk? Today is our Eagles season kickoff show. Official record predictions. Why is the weight of the world on Jalen Hurts' shoulders this season hindering this Eagles success? Who is the most important offensive and defensive player for the Birds this season? That and much, much more when we're back in 30 seconds.
One-on-one. Lovett flares out to the right. Caught over the middle. And he's at the 45. Gets blocked. Are you kidding? Oh! He's going to go. Oh! Brady gets hit. The ball is out. And Philadelphia has
it. What's up, everybody? I am your host, Dylan Davis. You can find me on Twitter at DylanJD98. To my left, my co-host, Scotty. Check him out on Twitter at ScottyJohn. As always, we're streaming to you guys live on DSM Media's Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook channels. If you guys want to be interactive on today's show, head on over to the YouTube channel specifically. We can pull your comments, thoughts, questions, concerns up on the screen. Engage with us. Tell us your thoughts on the Eagles this upcoming season, what your expectations are. Scotty, you're all good. Your Wi-Fi is all set. So is mine. I think we'll see if today's a bumpy show. But what's going on?
Oh, what's good, man? It's always a little nerve-wracking when I'm at mom's for the weekend. So the Wi-Fi always got me on edge, and StreamYard doesn't help me out with flashing that shit at the top of the screen.
No. Mine's up right now, man. You never know what the truth is, right?
Yeah, but I think we're good right now, and I'm excited to get into some Birds, man. We got one more Sunday to get through without NFL football, so let's get into it, bro. But go Birds. I'm fucking ready.
It's here, man. You look eagled up, so I'm excited for today's show. Like I said in the beginning, this is our Eagles season kickoff show. Obviously, next Sunday, leading into Thursday, actually leading into the opening game, we'll be covering the NFL in its entirety. But right now, we're focusing specifically on the Eagles. Jason, what's going on, my man? But Scotty, before we get into player expectations, why all the pressure is on Jalen Hurts? Who are the most important pieces offensively and defensively for this Eagles team to be successful? I want to start with our official record prediction. So if you remember a couple months back, schedule comes out, official release, first glance. What do you kind of like about it? That's before any of this roster really starts to take shape. So now that we know what this official roster really looks like heading into week one, we can really analyze and break down this schedule. And me and you, I think we had the same record prediction last time. We've both tweaked it, and we've come to the same outcome, the same conclusion here again. I won't spoil that just yet, but just looking at the schedule, the way I kind of did this, man, right? And we can go through if we want to, if anyone's curious of which games I'm looking at that could potentially be losses, any upsets, etc. But I really just went through because this schedule is, let me not get ahead of myself, but this schedule is as big a cakewalk as you could possibly ever hope for in terms of your favorite team's opponents, right? So what I did, instead of going, okay, week one win, week two loss, I kind of said, these are wins. I'm confident, 99.99% confident here that these are wins. And then I think this team's good enough to grab 2 or 3 of the games I haven't even named yet. So I don't know how you went about it, but that's kind of how I broke this schedule down, because it really, if you thought last year's schedule was easy, dude, this one's on a different level to me, because you don't have that. Last year you had that gauntlet, right? Like the first 7 weeks, you had loaded opponents, and then it got easy. No, man, this is just from 1 to 18. You got a game here and there that you're like, this is tough. But outside of that,
and that's kind of how I did it. I didn't do it that way on purpose, kind of, but I get where you're coming from as far as how you analyze the games, kind of in groups. So I had games, there's certain matchups where I believe the Eagles are going to win, 2 of these 3 matchups, whatever the case may be. So we can go through it week by week, but overall I did analyze it in the same fashion as you did, where it's kind of just years.
And another reason why I kind of went about it that way is because I'm looking at this schedule and I'm going through the first 5, 6, 7 games. Yeah. And I'm like, man, I envisioning them winning. Okay, this is a win. This is a win. This is a win. And I don't want to just be like, all right, well, they're going to start off 7-0 headed, you know what I mean? So I kind of went about it a different way, but my projection is exactly what Jason has. I started off at 11-6 when the schedule first came out, and I do have them at 12-5, man. And not just because of how the level of difficulty on the schedule, also what Howie's done as of late to this roster. We broke down the CJ Gardner-Johnson trade. That's a game changer defensively for this team. They go out. It's not going to mean much if Miles Sanders stay healthy, but they go out. They get a big physical power back that's played with Jalen Hurts before in Trey Sermon. He's young. He could provide something this team didn't have before in the backfield if injuries are to occur, which are expected with this Eagles running back group. So the way that Howie's kind of constructed this roster lumped together with the easiness of the schedule, I have 12-5, dude. I don't know about you.
Yeah. And I think, just talking about the easiness of the schedule.
No, wait, real quick, George. I know. That's my point. That's why I didn't go win, loss, etc. I'm just saying when you look at the schedule, it could be 7-0. That's why I didn't want to do it that way.
And just thinking about the easiness of the schedule, how lucky that we don't have to play anybody out of the AFC West this year.
Yeah,
we just get the lucky.
We did. We got out of that last year. We got that out of the way.
Exactly, man. So that's exciting. But no, I'm with you. I'm at 12-5, and there's going to be games, and I think this was talked about on Training in the AM the other morning. There's going to be games where you're not expecting them to lose this game. I think there will be at least one of those where they lose the game and you're just.
Dude, I'm not going to lie to you. Minnesota is a scary game as the home opener.
Yeah, I agree. And even I like the Lions. I think we're going to beat the Lions, but they're a lot better than what they were.
But the Eagles will win.
Yeah, I agree. But
spoiler alert for Eagles pregame live this upcoming Sunday.
No, but just going through the games as far as like how I have them tiered, I'm with you. So like throughout the first 7 games, right? You have like the Minnesota Vikings, the Washington Commanders. I don't know how do you feel about them this season and those matchups? Maybe we could talk about it in that fashion.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, there's part of me that thinks we split with them, but do we lose to the Commanders in week 3? You know what I mean? Like
exactly. If you don't lose to them in week 3, that means you're gonna. I don't think we lose to Carson coming back to Philly. I don't think that's the one you lose. So I agree with you. It's a little weird, right?
It is a little weird. I don't know how to feel about the Commanders, and so that's why in the early part of the season, I kind of grouped them and the Vikings together. I think we lose one of those games, for instance. So just looking at the first 3 games, I technically had us losing to the Vikings, but I think it's more or less once again, the Vikings game is a little confusing as well because you have Kirk Cousins in prime time, but you have also struggled against Kirk Cousins historically. So it's like, what's one of those trends is going to show up in that game? So like in my eyes, I look at those 2 games together. One of those is going to be a loss. Going to Arizona, for instance, West Coast trip.
See, I think they win that game. That's a win I have.
They win that game.
Yes,
I think have had success in Phoenix or in Arizona, I should say.
I have it as a win because I think Hopkins is a huge loss for them to start the year. Your number 1 immediately becomes Hollywood Brown, and when we broke down that division in the NFC West, man, they were that team sitting there they didn't do anything. Like right, they're a good team. It's not a lock of a win. They're a good team, and Kyler can give you problems. But in terms of being in that division with the Rams, with the Niners, who are making a big change at quarterback, the Cardinals didn't help themselves in the offseason to make them any better. I want to touch on this real quick because I don't want to get the comment too far behind. George bringing up the point about being tested, right, when we brought up not playing the AFC West. And I agree with him. However, I just think the West this year is that's 4 really good teams. Like I'm on board with Jordan's sense of like if they played the AFC North in its entirety and they had to play the Bengals and the Ravens. Those are 2 good tests in the regular season. I don't need to be tested 4 times outside of my, you know what I mean? Like the AFC West is just a different beast to me this year in terms of those 4. I'm good on it. Like if you want to test me 2 or 3 times, sure.
We beat Denver last season, for instance, right? Like we beat Denver.
Well, no, Russ.
What's that look like this year? You know what I mean? If we're playing this, so however,
Vegas violated us, and that was minus Devontae Adams, right? So, you know what I mean?
I'm with you. What about the first Dallas matchup? Because I'm excited to get Dallas in Philly in a game that actually matters.
For sure, and it's that Sunday night game, and I feel like that's been in Dallas for the last couple of years. It has. And it's here now. That's a W, man. You see what I'm talking about? There's too like it almost feels weird that there's too much optimism. And exactly, George, we can't beat Russ. That's been a story long engraved here. But dude, I have it pulled up. That's a win to me. Home against the Cowboys right there. And then it's funny, right? Because if that's a win and you think that they're going to split, well, then my Christmas Eve's getting ruined. Because they play in Dallas on Christmas Eve, you know what I mean? It's like,
and that game is actually we actually have 2 meaningful Dallas games this season, which I'm excited about because it's been, like you said, the last few years, it's been Sunday Night Football early on in the season in Dallas, and then once we get to the game that's actually in Philly, one of the 2 teams' starters are not playing, and it's happened the last couple seasons. So I'm excited to actually get 2 shots at them. Obviously, I want revenge. They blew the brakes off of us last year.
Yeah.
And I think we're coming in with a retooled team, as we already have discussed. But so I'm looking forward to those games heavy, man.
Yeah. So there's a stretch here that I want to get. So there's 2 things I have for you. You brought up the Cardinals game, the first Commanders game, and the Cowboys game. All great points. That's the weird thing about this, right? Like, all right, well, we think they're going to win them all, but then that's the part of where, okay, well, maybe they do start 6-0 on the year. That's where I can't get down with that.
Yeah.
First question to you. There's a lot of games on this list that aren't all cakewalks, but the Lions, the Jags, I get it. It's Doug's return. They spent money in the offseason. I get it. It's at home. I don't foresee them losing that game. The Texans, the Bears. Right. Yeah. Are there any of those that you can see as a potential loss?
Honestly,
any gut feeling?
I know some people will say the Jags just because like the Doug Peterson thing. And I get that. I just don't think the Jags are good enough. Like I don't think they're, compared to the Lions, like I think the Lions are better than the Jags in my eyes, for instance. So I don't see that one. Lions, maybe just the home, or not the home opener, but the season opener. Eagles come out rusty, playing a tight game with the Detroit Lions. They're trying to learn how to win as an organization. Yeah, there's definitely a little pressure there, but I think they take care of business against the Lions. The Texans are so interesting to me, and I have it penciled in as a win. It's a short week. It's in Houston. It's on national television. It just seems like it could get a little weird. That's just how I feel about that game. Davis Mills, they have a little bit of young talent down there. Brandon Cooks, don't know really what they got going on defense, but they're not a good team. We know that. Short week, Thursday Night Football, looking ahead to what the Commanders in Philly later on that next week. So just certain things with that Houston Texans game throws me off a little bit, but they just shouldn't lose these games. You know what I mean? Like they just shouldn't lose these games, but there's going to be one of them. And I guess if I
probably won't,
it would probably be the Houston Texans on a short week, but it's hard to predict for sure.
That's interesting. And then my other point about the schedule is there's a little, like we said, there's not much beef on this one, right? But there's a little part here where you have Carson's return to Philly, then you have the Colts in Indy. And you come home Sunday Night Football against Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. Obviously, we know what they lost this offseason, and we'll have a big sample size of what they are without Devontae Adams by the time we get to them. But just looking right there, that's a difficult game. And then you have the Titans, who obviously A.J. Brown's with us now. You're at home.
Yeah.
But still really good defense, King Henry. So you have a stretch right there of 3 if you want to include Carson's return, because it's a big storyline, whatever. You have 3 or 4 games in the right there towards the beginning of December that are the part where it's a little shaky. What's your thoughts on that little tier right there?
As you laid those specific games, those 3 specific games out, it just seems like 3 weeks in a row, even 4 weeks, you could say, where the Eagles defense is going to get pounded with a really good running back or a really good running back group. Mm-hmm. You start out with the Colts, Jonathan Taylor, the best rusher from last season. You get the Packers, A.J. Dillon, Aaron Jones. They're going to run the football a lot more this year with losing Devontae Adams. They have a good defense, right? So they're going to be playing that clock game. And it's all good because we do the same thing. We have that same capability with our running game. But nonetheless, they have some really stud running backs. And you already mentioned King Henry in that third week of those matchups. That's just going to be brutal on our defense. And then you could even go a step further and say the New York Giants, you get Saquon Barkley. Everybody's talking about him this season, saying he looks really good. So looking at those running back matchups in a row, that's obviously got to weigh in at some point. But I don't know. How do you look at like those 3 games specifically, the Colts, Packers, and Titans? Because I would take like 2 losses out of those 3. Like that would be fine. Like those are games that, obviously those are teams that should be in the playoffs. But at the same time, you want to win those games. But as you're looking through the schedule, which games do you lose, though?
Exactly.
So it's like those would be the games that you would probably catch some L's in. So just being
for sure. But then that also brings up the argument of, well, congratulations, you're 7-2 against the other teams, but then you went 1-2, 1-3 against the most difficult part of your schedule. What really is this team, right?
Yeah.
Like this is different. This is different than baseball, right? Like, I've been talking about the Phillies day in and day out for months now. And we argue, oh, well, some people say they only beat the bad teams. They only win the series versus the bad teams. This is different. This is 1 game per week. You only get 17 of them. So you have to make these count every week. And if you can only beat the Bears and the Jags and the Texans and the Giants, but you lose to the Vikings and the Packers and the Colts, that's going to be a problem for me. So, but I don't think that again, it's weird that I'm spewing this much positivity about this team already, and we haven't seen them play yet. But I have high expectations, man. I really do.
So who do you think? Where do you think the losses come if you had to pick losses, like of your 5 losses?
So, of my 5, I'm going to go 1 against Dallas.
Fair.
I'm going to this is weird. Oh, man, this is tough for me to say.
And I think we're being modest to Dallas because if they're as bad as they look, and as injured as they look, I don't know, man. But I'm with you. I give 1 to Dallas. We split with them.
I think we lose if I had to pick, I'm going the home opener on Monday night against the Vikings. But again, it's not it's a winnable game. It's their home opener. I had the Eagles ahead of the Vikings in my power rankings. Like, I think they're a better team, but if I'm listing out what games I see them losing, that's one. I think they lose in Indy to the Colts. That's a tough game. Really good defense. You mentioned Jonathan Taylor. Matt Ryan brings a little bit more. Might not be a more talented quarterback, but probably more stability there for Indy. So that's 3. I mean, we could say they split with Washington potentially. That could be 4.
Yeah.
And then if they drop 1, they could lose in Arizona.
How you feel about the Steelers?
It's an interesting one, but regardless, unless like Trubisky's already pulled and Kenny Pickett's set on fire because of the unknown and Trubisky's not going to walk in here and beat this team. I like their defense, I really do. I like Najee Harris, I like Deontay Johnson, but I just don't think they have enough, regardless of who quarterback is, to beat the Eagles in Philly specifically.
Yeah.
Obviously, the Packers is a losable game, but if I'm saying they're going to lose to the Colts, I think they go 1-1 in those two difficult games. So I'm not going to sit here and suggest they lose both of those games.
Yeah.
So
and I haven't beaten the Titans as well.
So here's what I'll say. Here's my final. I'm going with 12-5. Everyone's picking 11-6, and that was my initial projection. But then I see everyone on social media. I've seen like Eagles fans at tailgates being interviewed, and every single person 11-6. I have 11 wins. I have 11 wins. Like there's just too much to be exactly 11-6, right? I think they're a really good team. I'll give them one more. They have the possibility of whenever Phil said that, Jason, they had the possibility to, I won't say 14-3, they had the possibility of winning 13 games.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, they do. They do. Maybe I'm smoking something funny. Maybe they come out and they're 1-2. But that's where I have them.
Soon, man. I mean,
George, where do you have them at? I don't think I've seen you didn't drop your official prediction in here, did you? No.
I don't think.
What do you have them finishing at, George? I'm interested. I feel like he's going to say like 10-7. I just feel like that's where he's going. Watch him come out and be like 14-3. No, he won't.
I would like to know what George has him at, but yeah, I'm with you. It's always barring health. You need everybody to stay healthy.
For sure. That's a given.
I mean, 12-5. It just seems so realistic. I feel like once again I'm being modest. Like I have them losing at the Giants at the end of the season because it would matter, right? Like that's one of my losses, for instance. And like, don't get me wrong, they could drop one to the Giants, they could drop one to the Commanders, but then they're going to beat these other teams. So like it'll all end up equaling out. But I have them at 12-5, man, and I know these record predictions. I get what George is saying. 11-6, though. I would love to know the wins because I wasn't expecting that. But no, I get what George is saying because these mean nothing at the end of the day. It's just for fun. It's for entertainment. And it's to get excited about this season. But I know I've talked about it before, and I know nobody's played football yet. They're favored in 13 of their 17 games. Like it is a favorable schedule as of right now. So it's hard not to get excited.
Isn't that odd when it comes to odds makers and like sports books? So if they're favored in 13 of their 17 games, they're favored, meaning they're predicting the Eagles. Well, the Eagles should win those games.
Yeah.
But the over/under wins on those sports books is set at like 9.5.
It's weird, man. And
isn't that odd?
All day, bro.
Oh yeah. Isn't it odd though? Like if they're favorite. If they're favorites in that many games, how is the total 4 games lower?
I guess they just figure that they're gonna drop a game or 2 or 3 that they shouldn't.
And listen, for the first time in I forget how many years, the Eagles are starting the season off again. Means nothing, but they're starting the season off as the odds-on favorite from Vegas to win the NFC East. Health pending. We don't know yet. They're the favorites to start. So it's something to be excited about. It's not like they're third. And
8 of their first 9, I just looked, and they are favored in 8 of their first 9 games.
It's
up
crazy,
until the Colts game.
Right?
And the only other one
and that's the point.
Favored in is the Cardinals on the road. So
and that's a game I think they win.
Yeah, exactly. That's a game.
I'll say this to you. I think the Vikings at home is a more losable game than the Cardinals on the road.
I think that's fair. I think the Vikings one. I think a Vikings loss would just be more disappointing than losing to the Cardinals.
Yeah, it's the home opener. It's primetime football for sure. Yeah. But I just do. I think it's more losable. Or less winnable, we could say. And I agree, Jason. So that'll take us into our next couple segments, which is really kind of just talking about and George saying not worried about the Cards. I agree, man. I don't think they did anything to get any better. You're missing your best player, one of the top 5 wide receiver when he's on the field. That's a huge loss. And it's not like AJ Green's 105 years old, it feels like, and he's your number 2 now. Rondale Moore, that's cool. Hollywood Brown, you traded for him. I think Hollywood Brown next to DeAndre Hopkins is a good idea. I don't think Hollywood Brown is the number 1 wide receiver, as we've seen in Baltimore for a few years. So It'll be interesting. But let's get into our next couple segments, which is really kind of just talking about this roster, which we've done a lot of, but not breaking it down, giving some predictions, some expectations. And the first thing I want to start with is the man himself, and that's Jalen Hurts, right? And we're beating a dead horse here. I get it. But the whole conversation all offseason long is how he's put together this roster. He's got help offensively. The defense is loaded. The schedule is easy. The weight of the world is on Jalen Hurts' shoulders because not just for team success, for his own success to still be the Eagles starting quarterback next season. So do you view it that way? Forget him being, we all know he has to be successful for him to be here next year. But in terms of this team being successful this year, do you view it that way? Is it all on Jalen Hurts? Because the way I look at it is because if you break down this roster, it's not going to be A.J. Brown's fault. It's not going to be the offensive line's fault unless, like 4 dudes get hurt. It's not going to be Devontae Smith or Dallas Goedert's fault.
Yeah.
We know they can run the ball. And unless, even if Gannon's scheme, we don't know really what it is yet. Even if Gannon's scheme isn't this crazy, amazing kind of scheme that people have talked about, the defense has too much talent to be what they were to replicate last year's numbers.
Yeah.
Like, even if he's not putting them in the right position, the guys are still going to make plays in my mind. So I don't think it's going to be the defense's fault. So circle all that around, Scotty. Who's it come back to in that small little circle?
I feel you. And just while we're on this point, before I get into actually Jalen Hurts.
He's bringing up and Sirianni. That's where
I was going to ask that. Is there any worries? I know we were very critical of Sirianni early on in the season. Is there any worries that he falls back into that pass happy and it's not working again, right? Jalen Hurts isn't making the decisions. Everything we talked about coming into this season.
But that alone will tell you all you need to know about
Jalen Hurts, though, right?
Yes, that will tell you all you need to know about the future of this team with Jalen Hurts. So they're going to be paid. Don't get me wrong; they're going to run the ball more than they did in the first 3 weeks than they did last year. But we all know with the way this league is, the way Howie is, they want to pass the ball.
Yeah.
The 49ers want to pass the ball. That's why they're going the direction they're going. Okay?
Yeah.
If he can't do that with A.J. Brown behind this offensive line, Dallas Goedert, Devontae Smith, then that is a Jalen Hurts indictment, not a Nick Sirianni indictment anymore. Last year, it was an indictment on Sirianni because you had a rookie quarterback who was on a learning curve, who didn't have a true number 1 wide receiver. That was on Nick Sirianni. Now it's back on Hurts to me.
So let me ask you this. What do you think their ceiling is as a team if Jalen Hurts is just as good as he was last year? Do they get a playoff win instead this season? Like, how good are they? You know what I mean? If
their basement's 9 wins if he's just what he was last year, because we talked about the roster and the schedule. Like, that's what they won last year. They're not going to get worse with the help and the schedule if he's just what he was last year. But in order to win a playoff game, like, Scotty, if they have to play in Lambeau or if they have to play at home but versus the Bucs or the Rams, it's somewhere in the middle. He does not have to be amazing. He doesn't have to go out there and do what Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen did in the AFC divisional round last year. But he can't be what he was as a passer in a playoff game last year. There has to be a medium.
Because I guess that's what I would then that brings up my next question is, like, if he's not, and I'm not saying that he's going to come out and be Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, these caliber of quarterbacks, Joe Burrow. If he's not, then what saves his seat as QB1? You know what I mean? Like, what can he do this season? Is it about playoff wins? Like, if they get a playoff win, does that keep him as QB1?
I think
or is it about how you get it?
It's up to these.
Yeah.
You're going to watch the game and know.
Yeah.
That's my point. People get wrapped up in the stats. Well, if he throws for 4,000 yards well, guess what, buddy? If he throws for 4,000 yards and 35 touchdowns, that means he probably looked pretty damn good, right?
Yeah,
So the stats come
exactly.
secondary. If the Eagles win 13 games and win a playoff game, Hurts probably looked pretty good. What I'll say about the ceiling and the basement in terms of if he's no better, the basement doesn't change. Like the floor stays around 9 wins, 10 wins if he doesn't get improved. But the ceiling desperately comes down if he's the same as he was last year. Because the ceiling right now is championship level. If expecting that he improves as a passer.
Yeah.
If he doesn't, that ceiling's down to maybe a playoff game.
Yeah. I think that's fair. That's a fair way to put it. Is there any world where Jalen Hurts does come out and have an MVP caliber season? It has everything around him that
man.
Is it possible? Can you improve that much as a passer in the NFL?
I just think MVP is too far. I think MVP. I think it's too far stretched. Yeah, I think that leap would be so astronomical.
Yeah,
and don't give me, well, Carson did it in his second year here. You watched Carson his rookie year, and even though they went 7-9, the man had Pennsylvania t-shirts maybe because you watched and you saw what he was as a quarterback, even though the team wasn't good. This is different. The team's good. We don't know what the quarterback is.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I don't think he's climbing up to an MVP. He's saying hell no. It's not hell. It's a no for me. It's a firm no. But I do think he can be very good and very successful this year.
Yeah. I would say, just the little things like start.
What do you think he needs? So let me ask you this.
You know what I mean? Let's see, flip 20 passing touchdowns, for instance.
What do you think he needs to be, right? Because in this day and age, we sit here and we watch the Joe Burrows, the Justin Herberts, the Tom Brady's, the Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen. We watch all these great quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And we think that's what you need. But when you look at this roster, well, where do you think he needs to be? Does he need to get to a level where he's in that conversation, or does he just need to be good enough with what's around him?
I think there's two versions of Jalen Hurts that we could see this season. I think one is Jalen Hurts that doesn't make mistakes, right? Just a game manager. Gets the ball to, it has a lot of pre-developed, plays where he's getting the ball out quick, get it into your playmaker's hands, takes a lot of the pressure off Jalen Hurts. There's another version where this is what makes us a contender. And this is what separates us from just making the playoffs and actually winning a playoff game. And that's Hurts going through reads, making the right decisions.
Pushing the ball down the field?
That leash. What'd you say?
Pushing the ball down the field?
Pushing the ball down the field. Taking risks.
Not a lot. I don't need to see it a lot. I don't need to see it a lot.
It just needs to be very dialed in. He needs to make the right decisions in the right moments.
It needs to be in the back of the defense's mind. It needs to be in the back of the defensive coordinator's mind. It needs to be in the back of the secondary's minds that this dude can get the ball down the field. That is a
Bucs coordinator talking like that, like he was talking in that playoff game last year. They were not intimidated by Jalen Hurts. Him throwing was not a factor in that game. It cannot be that at any point in this season because they have too many weapons. It would be ridiculous. And I think that's the best version of Jalen Hurts. I don't think it has to do with numbers, records, but if he's making the right decisions in the right moments, which is ultimately what we're going to be looking for to win games, the numbers will be there anyways.
Yeah.
So, creating this fallacy of MVP, this and that, it doesn't have to be that. He just needs to make the right plays at the right time. And like you said, it's going to come down to your eyes and just understanding what you're looking at.
Let me throw this word out for you. My biggest thing for Jalen Hurts this year, the word that needs to describe him the most is consistency.
Yeah.
Just be consistent. Fair. And what do I mean by whatever level he is? Whether he gets, what is George's thing? He needs to get from A to G or A to E, and he's at D right now. Whatever his thing is, let's say if he gets to E, he needs to sustain that E level right around it. If he stays at D, because when I watched this kid last year, all I saw was inconsistency.
Yeah,
And I don't even mean week to week, Scott. Well, yes, week to week, but throughout a game, like go back to the Denver game. Would you say that the Denver game was the best game of his career so far?
Passing, yeah. Passing.
Yeah. Interesting to me. Why? You know why it's interesting to me? Because he threw for about 10 yards in the second half. I think he threw for under 10 yards in the second half.
Yeah.
Is that consistent? He had a great first half. I'm not questioning it. They won the game. Congratulations. He threw for like 10 or less yards in an entire half of football. That's not consistent.
Yeah.
Doing what he did against the Chargers, keeping them in that game, having a successful last drive to take the lead before the defense blows it, and then like a week or so later, having the worst game of your career against the freaking Giants. That's not being consistent. Whatever his level is, it needs to stay here or a steady incline. It cannot be this all year long and throughout games and drive after drive. Look great, be bad. Look great, bad interception. That cannot happen this year. So consistency is the one thing I'm looking for out of Jalen Hurts as a passer this year.
That is a huge point, because that is where we found ourselves last year. Just so many question marks, right? He'd pick up steam, win a couple games in a row. And yes, the opponents weren't the greatest last year. We know that. But he would pick up some steam, get a couple games in a row where he's looking really good.
Right, he'd have me like changing my tone about him as a passer, and then next thing you know, it's like, oh my God, what is this kid doing again? And then you get
to the next week, and you have a game like the Raiders, right? Or it is consistency, and I think that's what it comes down to. Aside from what we are expecting as development overall, it is just consistency. That's what kind of goes into
for sure
starting to be a good quarterback.
So we're in agreement. Maybe it's not fair. It's his second year as a starter. It really doesn't matter. This is the position we're in. All the pressure, the deciding factor on the Eagles' success this year, their ceiling, is on Jalen Hurts' shoulders. Fair or foul, that's the way it is.
Yeah.
And that's where we'll leave that. Now, what I'll say is that I have confidence in the man to grow.
Yeah.
When you have all of the intangibles, when you have the work ethic, and then you add the talent around him, I truly believe that he will be better this year as a passer. Yeah. And that's the thing I'm looking for. So that we'll see, man. Week one right here, man. Donald, 100%. We are 1 week away. 1 week from now, Scotty, we will be doing Turf Talk live, getting ready for the full Sunday slate and getting ready for Eagles pregame live. So that takes up the Jalen Hurts part of the show. Now I want to get to the others. Well, let's talk about the importance of the others on this roster. We talked Jalen Hurts. Let's stick offensive first. Who is the single most important offensive player, not named Jalen Hurts, on this Eagles roster for success in terms of success this year?
This is tough. Initially, I think to the offensive line. And I think, I think about Lane Johnson and how important he is to that offensive line.
Mm-hmm. What about Dillard's hurt now? What about Mailata? He goes down. You don't even have Dillard there now. I don't even like. George Chime, he's going with Miles Sanders.
It's interesting. He is the most dynamic running back that we have in our backfield committee. And if he goes down, it really simplifies that running game. So I could see that as well. Part of me wants to say A.J. Brown, and I think that's where I'm going to go, because I think that's what changes the entire dynamic of this.
It does. Yeah.
A legitimate wide receiver one. There's going to be times where he may get double covered. You can't double cover A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert and then go one-on-one with Quez down the field. You know what I mean? Like, the offense is going to be so much more open because of A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown heavily depends on Jalen Hurts, as we know, but it always comes back to Hurts. But I would lean A.J. Brown, but that's a really tough question. What are you thinking?
So, and I like George's answer. A.J. Brown, it's not even just his production. It's the trickle-down effect, as we talked about since he was traded here. It's the fact that what he opens up, and now Devontae Smith's down the slot, now et cetera, et cetera. I'm going to go a little bit different of a route. And I'm going to go with the guy who I think is the biggest beneficiary of A.J. Brown's presence, and that's Dallas Goedert. Here's why. If Dallas Goedert is what you think he is, Scotty, what do we call him? A top 5 tight end? Now, trust me, I see the athleticism. I see the tight. I just need to see it more consistently with that quarterback, right? If Dallas Goedert is a top 4, top 5 tight end this year and is a huge pass catching threat over the middle of the field, I can't imagine what this offense can look like.
Yeah.
Like his size, his speed, his athleticism, his hands over the middle of the field with this offensive line, with the weapons on the outside, if the middle of the field is effective by Dallas Goedert, I think the offensive ceiling is sky freaking high. Forget the deep ball with Quez Watkins. Forget A.J. Brown one-on-one. If Dallas Goedert can tear up the middle of the field, Jalen Hurts' vision, Jalen Hurts' reads, everything simplified. The field's a lot of green, and this offense can be high-flying if Dallas Goedert is important.
And I think that's the next step for Goddard. Like you said, I think he's shown all the flashes to be a top 5 tight end in this league. He is arguably top 5 tight end. I think he solidifies himself as a consensus top 5 tight end this season. And the only way that he can do that, similar to Zach Ertz, he needs to become that possession type of receiver for Jalen Hurts, where if Jalen Hurts is on third down, it's third and short.
Security blanket.
Goddard is going to catch that ball. Goddard is not going to fumble that ball. Right?
That is a great point, right? Because, what have we seen out of Goddard? We know the big playability from him as the tight end.
Little things.
Can you be the security blanket over the middle of the field? That's
going to be
incredibly
huge.
important.
We
know that he can get downfield, down the seam for a 40-yard catch and jump over a safety and go get the ball, or break a tackle and take one of the house from 25 out. We know that. Like you just said, on 3rd and 4, on 3rd and 3, can I rely on you to run a crisp route, get open, get to the sticks, get the ball, get down?
It's like, what was that? The game against Washington last year. You come out, you get the ball in Goddard's hands, you get it in the playmaker's hands.
For one possession.
And you fumble.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You can't do things like that. If he wants to put himself in the Mark Andrews and the Travis Kelce's, the George Kittles, the Darren Wallers of the world, he has to be there in those moments to make those plays simply. Don't be a detractor. You want to be a star tight end, then you got to make star plays, and that goes along with not making mistakes. And I think that's a great answer. And nonetheless, I think he is very important as far as, and you use the term security blanket, and that's the perfect way to put it.
And again, that's why every single thing we talk about here comes back to number 1. It's what it comes down to.
It comes back to Hurts.
Right? So, all right, that's offensive. We have Sanders, Goddard, Brown. We didn't even talk about Devontae Smith. We touched on the offensive line for a second, but that's barring injury. Like I'm not going to
Kelsey, the leader. You know what I mean?
Right,
the voice.
exactly.
So many.
But in terms of if everyone's healthy, this offense can just be so. Just envisioning it being so dynamic, but we'll see. All right, defensive side of the ball. My man here is saying Fletcher Cox is the most important side of the defense for the Eagles. Scotty, what do you got for me here? Because a lot of new additions here, man. There's some youth. There's a new linebacker that can play safety. There's a lot of stuff here.
You can go a lot of different ways here.
I know where I'm going, so I'm not going to change if you.
So here's what I'll say. Here's the way I'll lay it out. I think the best player in the defense this year is going to be Hassan Reddick, and I think he's going to be very fun. I think he's going to get a lot of sacks. I think he's going to have one of his best seasons in his career, quite honestly.
That's interesting you say that.
I don't know if he's the most important.
Okay.
And the reason I say that, my mind for some reason goes to Marcus Epps. And he's got all of this hype this year. You have Peter Schrager on Good Morning Football saying, Marcus Epps is a top 10 breakout player in the NFL, not just of safeties, of DBs, a top 10 breakout player in the NFL. And we know George has talked about Marcus Epps. It's interesting. And I think he's all of a sudden got a little bit of hype to live up to, and he's going to be our safety blanket on that defense. He's going to be the guy that's on the back end having to make a lot of those plays and hopefully getting some turnovers for this defense. So importance, there's a lot of different routes you can go. I see Cox
so many routes.
And Graham is another interesting one. Having BG back is huge just from a leadership standpoint and just doing the small things on defense. Where are you going with this one?
Oh, well, first, let me touch it. There's so many routes. You brought up Marcus Epps as a safety. That's your pick. You could talk about anybody on the defensive line. You can talk about James Bradbury as CB2 if he's still playing like a CB1. You could talk about the new addition next to Marcus Epps. If CJ Gardner-Johnson transitions easily to safety and he's as good or close to as good at safety as he was a nickel for the Saints, that's humongous. I'm going with who you said is going to have the best season defensively, and that's Hassan Reddick, because I think if Hassan Reddick has double-digit sacks, not just double-digit sacks, if Hassan Reddick has 12.5, 13.5 type sack season, I think that tells you how good the Eagles' defensive front was. Because I don't think Hassan Reddick himself getting 12 or 13 is just Hassan Reddick getting himself. I think that means the defensive front as a whole is dominant this year.
Exactly. If you're coming into a game, in the talk of the game coming in is you got to watch out for Hassan Reddick coming off that edge. That means this defense is something else, right? Like that, we have not had that where there is just that one guy. Like when you play the Cowboys, Micah Parsons is the focus, right? You are not letting this man destroy your team. Destroy your quarterback, get in the backfield, make tackles for losses.
Be destructive,
Hassan Reddick needs I'm not saying he's Micah Parsons. I'm not going that far, but he needs to be that for this defense.
But you know what's funny though? I get you. He's not as talented as Micah Parsons. I mean, I get that. But we can't say he's not Micah. He's third in the NFL in sacks over the last 2 or 3 seasons.
Yeah.
So you can hold him to the highest standard in terms of getting in the backfield, pass rushing, getting after the quarterback, because he's done it at the highest level for a couple years running now. And that, by the way, those were on lesser talented defenses. Exactly. So now it's the same thing. It's the same dynamic as A.J. Brown on the offense. It's not just A.J. Brown and what he's going to bring to the table, just like it's not just what Hassan Reddick's going to bring to the table. It's vice versa. How can Dallas Goedert and Devontae Smith benefit? How can A.J. Brown benefit from having them two next to him? Hassan Reddick. How will Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham and Josh Sweat and Javon Hargrave benefit? How will Hassan Reddick benefit from those four being on the defensive line next to him? What are you going to do? That's what I'm so excited to see. What are you going to do offensively to stop whatever front they're going to run at you? Who you double?
What about TJ Edwards? What about the linebacking core?
So, and George brought it up. He's the Mike linebacker, right? That's incredibly important. And I think that's you had the rookie in Nakobe Dean. He's not going to start, but he's going to play. He's going to have a role on this team. Kaiser White's more of your coverage kind of linebacker. TJ Edwards is going to have to do everything. Yeah. TJ Edwards, specifically in the run defense department, is incredibly important for this Eagles linebacking group. So it's funny, man, because it's not a bad answer, because if TJ Edwards, let's say, takes a step,
becomes a leader on the defense,
right?
Like I don't know what to call it. It's like slipping my head. A vocal leader, I should say, of this defense. A guy that can put guys in their spots, right? Know where everybody's supposed to be. If he can be that leader, I would tend to agree with Jordan.
I'll give you one. I'll give you one we haven't even talked about, and that's because of the unknown, because he's a rookie. Jordan Davis.
Yeah.
Because Scotty, what if he's as disruptive as advertised? He's the largest man on the team. Well, maybe behind him. Is he bigger than Mailata? I think he's bigger than Mailata.
It's close.
I mean, you get my point? Yeah. If he is as advertised, what that opens up for everybody around him is insane. And I saw what Jason said earlier in the show about our run defense being suspect in years past. Sure, I don't know if that's going to be the case this year with that hotel of a human being in the middle of this defensive line. So
And you
we'll
have
see,
good
man.
tacklers. You have linebackers
Yeah.
that can actually tackle, which is great.
100%. So kind of to bring everything together.
Yeah.
Everything's a positive. Does that worry you at all? Does it scare you? Do you have a little bit of pullback when it's like, whoa, why is everything all sunshine and rainbows coming out of this conversation right now?
Yeah, you definitely. I mean, if you're a Philadelphia fan, you have to have a little bit of that, that gut feeling, wondering if, this is the next dream team incident, the Vince Young syndrome in Philadelphia. You have to wonder, and then it leads to thoughts like, what is the worst possible outcome for this team, right? Like, what could happen that is out of our realm of beliefs right now? Because like you said, everything has been positive. We have them at 11, 12, 13 wins on the season. What happens that could turn that completely the other way, right? Where the Eagles finish last in the division. I just think about worst case scenarios. And, obviously you don't want things like that to happen. A lot of it goes to injury. That's where my mind goes, just because of what we have dealt with in the past. But it's hard not to be excited whenever you see Howie Roseman going out. We say, we need safety help. He goes and gets a safety. We need wide receiver help. He goes and gets a wide receiver.
We need running
this.
back depth.
Goes and gets that. Like, he just keeps plugging holes. Plugs hole after hole. He finally addressed the linebacking unit. He brings more depth on the defensive line. Like, when you have a GM like that, and it's crazy we're talking about him like this. Yeah, I'm with you, George. It is scary. There's no way that you can't be scared, but there's no way that you can't be also very confident after what Howie's been able to do this offseason.
I tweeted out the other day after he made the Gardner Johnson move, and it's there has not been a player, a coach, a general manager, anything in this city in my lifetime has someone gone from so high up on my shit list to someone I believe in, someone I have faith in, someone I trust.
Yeah.
As quickly as Howie Roseman has gone from.
Yeah.
Seriously. And he's done one hell of a job. And one last thing. You mentioned plugging holes. It's not, Scotty, it's not just it's not just sticking a rag, in a hole and slowing down the water from coming in, right?
Yeah.
He's fully repairing
the
hole. CJ Gardner-Johnson is not just a plug in a hole. It is a patch that's completely fixed that hole.
Yeah, I agree. He has not only plugged holes, he has plugged them with very, very good play.
Right. This isn't a short-term solution for the season. This isn't a guy who can come in for 3-4 weeks and help. This is the guy at this position at a high level. And that was my point. So it scares me a little bit, but
I got a few questions for you, and I don't know, as far as what we have planned for the rest of the show here, I have a few questions over unders. Can go through these really quick if you'd like.
Yeah, we'll wrap up with this. I was just going to go on DraftKings myself and go on Eagles team futures, so we could do that.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. Get the commenters, the viewers involved here as well. Let me ask you this while you get it pulled up.
Yeah, go ahead.
Who do you think leads the team in interceptions this year?
Jalen Hurts. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh man.
I want to say James Bradbury.
Yeah, that's fair because they're not going to target Slay very often. Yeah. Hopefully,
and I think that was a big thing. Bradbury in the right scheme still a CB1 on a lot of teams, dude.
Yeah,
and I think he was a playmaker for the Giants. So yeah, I'll go with James Bradbury as CB2.
I like it, man. I like it.
Why can I not pull these up? Team futures. Team futures or player futures? What do you want to do?
We can do both. Just go through them quick. Start with team, maybe.
All right. Regular season wins. First team that comes up, Philadelphia Eagles. Over under 9.5. Over set at -155. I'm with you. Hammer the over. Hammer the over. this schedule, this roster, if Jalen Hurts is no better than he was last year, this is still a 10-win team at minimum.
Yeah. I think George said it earlier. Even if Jalen Hurts is just what he was last year, and you said it the entire show as well, the defense is so good, they can grab a game or two more wins from what they did last season. So I'm with you.
All right. George going with the over. I have another one. Jalen Hurts, regular season passing yards, over under 3,550 and a half.
It's funny. I had
minus 115.
I had this written down. And how many passing yards did he have last year?
I forget, but what it was like 31, maybe 32, something like that. I think
he does. If we're 12-5, yes,
you think so?
He needs to have 35.
You think so? Wow.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know, man. That's hard. And
it is hard.
We got the wins over. We got Hurts over. I guess you're right. Like if they're as successful as we think, possibly, but
it doesn't have to do with yards at the same time.
Exactly.
I know what you mean.
And George going with the under until he sees him do it. So that is not a prop George is going to hit on. I'll go to passing TDs. Jalen Hurts over under 22.5 passing touchdowns. Not total passing.
16 last year. You said 22.5, so 23 touchdowns he would have to get.
I'm taking the over. I think that's a department he increases
more than yards.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
AJ, Dallas, Goddard, they give you some.
Doesn't have to be a lot. If he throws 24 touchdowns, that's not a lot of passing touchdowns, but it's over.
Like Pascal had 5 receiving touchdowns last year. Like if he can come in and have similar production, you got a lot of nice red zone targets.
All right, let's see here. AJ Brown over under 1,025.5 receiving yards. Does he eclipse the 1,000 mark, and by how much, if so?
Oh, man. It's so hard to read. Like, is it going to be AJ? Is it going to be Smitty? Is it going to be Goddard?
I have the next one's interesting, man.
I'm going to go yes, AJ.
Wow.
He's missed some games the last few seasons. I think he stays healthy. He's hungry this season. And the way they've been talking about him, I think he's going to get the ball force-fed to him at times. And so I think that's going to lead to over.
I was going to bring up that point. How much of it is Jalen Hurts distributing the ball around the field, and how much is he keying in on his best friend?
Yeah.
123 receptions. That's a lot. Here's the interesting one for you. This is your boy, dude. I feel like you're going to hop all over this one. And if you do, you better place your wager on it. Dallas Goddard over under 700.5 receiving yards this year.
Yeah. Oh, I'm smashing that over.
That's an over, right?
He had 800 last year, right? He had 800 receiving yards last year, I think.
I think so. 700.5 slow. Yeah. I mean, maybe the sportsbook thinks there's too many mouths to feed, but
he had 830 yards last year receiving. And I don't think Hurts was fine. Hurts wasn't seeing the field the way he was supposed to. So I think he's going to improve
again,
that.
Two more overs, and I'll give you one more for the receivers. Devontae Smith, over under 875.5 receiving yards. Who benefits more? If
Goddard
his life becomes.
I can't take Smitty over as well. That would mean Jalen Hurts is approaching like 4,000 passing yards or some shit. So I'm going to have to hit the under on Smitty, but I understand that it very well could be vice versa on any one of those scenarios. Smitty could go off.
Wow, here's an interesting one. Jalen Hurts over under 8.5 rushing touchdowns on the season.
8.5, you said? So 9 rushing touchdowns?
Yeah.
He loves getting those rushing touchdowns, man. That's such a high number, though. 8.5. So you'd have to get 9. He got 10 last year. Do you think they make an effort to get the running backs in the end zone more this season? Like, I feel like if you get Miles Sanders in the red zone, he didn't have a touchdown last year.
Yeah. I don't know.
What do you got? I don't know how I feel about that.
I'm not touching that. Last one I'll give you. Which one's a better bet? Dallas Goedert over 4.5 receiving touchdowns, or AJ Brown over 6.5 receiving touchdowns?
Just seeing what Goddard had last year. 4 touchdowns last year. I'm gonna go AJ Brown.
Yeah. We got the Dallas Goddard over here. I feel like Goddard benefits. George saying neither. That's interesting. That is interesting. Nonetheless, Scotty, a lot of positives. A lot of positives, a lot of overs, a lot of player success could equal a lot of team success. That is going to wrap up the Eagles season kickoff show. Guys, this is NFL Turf Talk streaming on DSM Media on our Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube channel. If you're new to the channel, head on over to @DSM_media on Twitter. Hit that follow button. We greatly appreciate it. And while you're over there, hit the link tree in our bio to take you to every social media platform we are available on. Hit that subscribe button on the YouTube channel. Like this video. Like I said, we greatly appreciate it. Check my man Scotty out on Twitter @ScottyDrowned. You can find me on Twitter @DylanJD98. Everyone, have a great rest of your Sunday, and we are 1 week away from Eagles football.
Go Birds.